Hi everyone, Garage Autonomist here, and today's episode is about the one subgroup of the manosphere that I have a slight soft spot for. That would be the MGTOW movement. I believe that it is okay for a man to go on his own way and not be a woman-hating, pro-patriarchal, sexist, anti-feminist whiner who stalks women, can't stop talking about women, will make endless podcasts and YouTube videos about women, and also utilize and obsessed over pornographied images of women in the only visual context that makes me comfortable to see them in.
What is the source of women's oppression? Those who maintain that women constitute a caste or class are led to the conclusion that it is not capitalism, but men who are the prime enemy. This position leads to a false strategy in our struggle for liberation. The new stage in the struggle for women's liberation already stands on a higher ideological level than did the feminist movement in the last century. Many of the participants today respect the Marxist analysis of capitalism and subscribe to Engels's classic explanation of the origins of women's oppression. It came about through the development of class society, founded upon the family, private property, and the state. But there still remains considerable misunderstandings and misinterpretations of Marxist positions that have led some women to consider themselves radicals or socialists, to go off course and become theoretically disoriented. Influenced by the myth that women have always been handicapped by their childbearing functions, they tend to attribute the roots of women's oppression, at least in part, to biological sexual differences. In actuality, its causes are exclusively historical and social in behavior. Some of these theorists maintain that women constitute a special class or caste. Such definitions are not only alien to the views of Marxism, but led to the false conclusion that it is not the capitalist system, but men who are the prime enemy of women. I propose to challenge this contention. The findings of the Marxist method, which have laid the groundwork for explaining the genesis of women's degradation, can be summed up in the following propositions. First, women are not always the oppressed or second sex. Anthropology, or the study of prehistory, tells us the contrary. Throughout primitive society, which was the epoch of tribal collectivism, women were the equals of men and recognized by man as such. Second, the downfall of women coincided with the breakup of the matriarchal clan, commune, and its replacement by class-divided society with its institutions of the patriarchal family, private property, and state power. The key factors which brought about this reversal in women's social status came out of the transition from a hunting and food-gathering economy to a far higher mode of production based upon agriculture, stock raising, and urban crafts. The primitive division of labor between the sexes was replaced by a more complex social division of labor. The greater efficiency of labor gave rise to a sizable surplus product, which led first to the differentiations, I can never pronounce that word right, and then to the deep-going divisions between the various segments of society. By virtue of the directing roles played by men in large-scale agriculture, irrigation, and construction projects, as well as in stock raising, this surplus wealth was gradually appropriated by a hierarchy of men as their private property. This, in turn, required the institution of marriage and the family to fix the legal ownership and inheritance of a man's property. Through monogamous marriage, the wife was brought under the complete control of her husband, who was thereby assured of legitimate sons to inherit his wealth. This segment was from Women, Caste, Class, or Oppressed Sex by Evelyn Reed, 1970. If you want to find her extensive work, such as The Evolution of Woman, which I consider one of my 10 Bibles, please find that book on Amazon. It is available there. I wasn't being facetious nor sarcastic when I say that I have a soft spot for MGTOW. You see, in 1992, when I was 24, I had already decided that I was never going to get married nor have children. Although I did not have at the time medical benefits that would allow me to easily pay for a vasectomy, since I had a labor job in the great state of Texas at the time, I would have to pay out of pocket for the whole procedure. I still planned on having it done, even though it might take me 3 years to do it. Why would someone at that age be determined to not have a family or get married? One, I had a very romantic notion at the time to leave the United States and move to South America. I just wanted an adventure, did not want to get sucked into the life of a consumerist existence, where I would have to make compromises that made me a wage slave for the rest of my life. I was really going to go full on as a lifestyle anarchist, because the last heartbreak, quote unquote, that I had was from previous years as an activist, where I encountered authoritarian bullshit and leaders who just wanted to burn you out as a young person and bend you to being a worker bee for the cause. And that cause was upholding those people as career activists. So if I could not be the revolutionary I wanted to be as I saw it, I'd rather just opt out of the lifestyle of mainstream America and say adios from Brazil. So too, I felt that marriage, or at least the marriages that I saw as examples at the time, were inherently hierarchical and authoritarian, and they just didn't seem all that fun. See, at this time, I was very much of that basic mindedness that felt that relationships were absolutist, in that either the man or the woman was going to be the boss. I didn't want to be the boss of some woman, definitely not going to let some woman be my boss. So I didn't think it would be worth pursuing such relationships. At the time, even back then, as I raged against feminist theory and thought through my bell hooks books across my apartment out of reaction to every paragraph the woman wrote, and thought that the anti-feminist feminists of the time, like Camille Paglia, was the shit, I still did not embrace hating women, nor thought oppressing them systematically was acceptable. So I was determined to go through my life with conviction as a loner. I just needed at least 3 years of saving money for the snip and move to a foreign country to make that happen. But as with all of us, I guess we meet that special someone, that special person, and whatever convictions you might have that you find yourself compromising them for, you feel that that person is the right one. So I stayed in the United States. I married that person some 5 years later, but I did get the vasectomy only after the second kid, some 15 years later. And now I still say that marriage does not have to be the only option for young people, male, female, same sex, to choose. You see, after being in a committed relationship for so long and looking at either side of the road at other marriages of friends and family and colleagues that have crashed and burned there, I have found myself putting marriage as an institution under the microscope further than I did when I was young, and realize that under capitalism, like other aspects of human relationships, marriage seems to have become a utility or even a commodity that help consumerism more than somehow benefiting the human individual, and less so unifying humans as families. I think the nuclear family is in fact the antithesis of community and world community at large, and instead is like a squadron that makes sure that goods are consumed for profit, and that the state is kept intact due to the squadron's dependency on the managers of the system, like politicians, the military, and the police. We see that waste further poisons our environment due to the carbon footprint left in the wake of this consumerist unit. And in the end, this unit feels that it is not responsible for strengthening the community at large. Therefore, there is no collective sense of what is happening to people around them, as we mindlessly approve of every war that seeks to grab a stronger hand on land and natural resources for the ruling class, while we lose more as working people. The more I saw things like this, it made more sense to me as to how wasteful most marriages have become over the last 10 years. And under my observations, Since the marriages seemed to be so brief, I saw both parties kind of asking what the hell happened as to why it ended so quickly and why did we even get with each other in the first place. The MGTOW argument, and it is safe to say the MRAs reflect this as well, is that it is women who have victimized men as utilities in a marriage and use marriage as a way to survive in society. But let's be real here. Men have always used either material gains or a promise to secure a woman's future in return for her favors since the rise of patriarchy.
She's a grown fucking woman who's been kicked around, and she's been on her own, and she's had to fight and struggle.
Unlike me, is that it? Who the fuck wanted it like this?
It was the favors, the security, and the protection that has convinced women it is in their best interest to cast their lot in with men, and so therefore, out of such a union, based on a transaction, if you will, children are produced. So one could see that as the keeper of the hearth and laborer of childcare and rearing, it's women who are the real utility. This is basically some of what Evelyn Reed was hitting on. Now, I will be fair at this point and point out that no one should be a utility at all in unions between human beings. I have had my fair share of female friends who have had agendas and as a result have placed men in real cuckold positions that have made their men's heads spin. And each man she got with made a little bit more money and had a little bit more assets than his predecessor. At the same time, I have seen female friends go back to working minimum wage jobs because after years of dedicating her time and labor, keeping the house and raising her family in a more traditional setting, therefore taking her out of the workplace, her husband divorced her at will. In other words, basically at the ripe old age of 38, she was too old in comparison to his new 23-year-old girlfriend, and rather than taking that shit lying down, my friend left her husband. Now, while keeping her dignity, she had no skill set at all that prepared her to be able to provide for her 3 children. She was now not only a discarded utility of her ex-husband, but in the workforce, she is seen as of no use with only 2 years of college that she never finished some 16 years ago. Almost like there is a forced or desperate need to be together, which extends to buying a whole house, make children, yet while doing all of this, you barely know the spouse as a person, and therefore the falling out happens with frightening ease. Relationships in and of themselves seem to become mix and match utilities and are easily discarded and abandoned as they are put together from the beginning. Now, having said that, this does not mean that people cannot truly get to know someone else, make a decision to be a couple for as long as they want to be happy. In fact, if we resist the socialized need, quote unquote, to get hitched and take our time being ourselves and therefore getting more in tune with who we feel might be a better match for us. Now, having said that, does not mean that people cannot truly get to know someone else, make a decision to be a couple for as long as they want to be happy. In fact, if we resist the socialized quote-unquote need to get hitched and take our time being ourselves and therefore becoming more in tune with who might be a better match for us, love in a relationship can truly be discovered. But what we have right now, it actually makes sense as to why a young person, according to many articles like Time Magazine's Why 25% of Millennials Will Never Get Married, look up the article, reflect the current trend of people questioning marriage. Again, there's nothing wrong with choosing to opt out of marriage, and if it's marriage that you want, then know yourself well enough by taking the time to do so that you will know what and who you truly want from a partner. Or you can lead a good life without a partner. In the end, it comes down to the individual choice in this matter. Love and relationships have become dehumanized thanks to our current culture defined by patriarchy and capitalism. You could be a MGTOW or you could be a WGTOW, which, by the way, WGTOWs have existed way before MGTOWs, and if you noticed, they've never had to go hunting down men telling them how much they don't like men. But like I was saying, you can be a MGTOW and you could be a WGTOW, but just know why you want to be one, and while you're at it, you don't have to be an asshole along the way. This is the Garage Autonomist.